There is a tip I could give you that will help you connect with journalists and become friends with them. It's that tip that I'm going to share with you in today's Public Relations Podcast. A very good morning to you. Welcome back. It is Monday. It's the Public Relations Podcast, and it's my final day in Athens, in Greece, where I've been giving a presentation this week. I'll be leaving the hotel room in the next hour. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the hotel room around me. And then I'm going to be heading to the airport and going back to London. But before I do, I thought I'd share one more tip from here, sticking with this theme of press releases, which has really dominated the past week on the show. By the way, if you missed a newsletter this weekend, then go to thepublicrelationspodcast.com, thepublicrelationspodcast.com, which had a series of tips about writing press releases, as well as the standard sort of structure that I recommend people use for that as well. So it is Monday, and here's the tip for this week. If you are thinking, how the heck do I get my press releases to work? Try this. When you reach out to a journalist you have never spoken to before, don't pitch a news story. Pitch an angle related to a story they're already writing. Let me give you an example of this. Do you remember on Monday last week in the episode where I mentioned those battery developers, the car battery developers that I've been speaking to, who were trying to get their press releases to work? So even if they followed my tip, then they might still struggle. But here's another way they could have increased their chances of getting noticed. And this illustrates the point. If you go on Google right now, or if you go on Google when you get to work and search for the term electric cars and then select the news tab at the top, there are some like 10 pages, I think I found, of results of news stories in the past 24 hours. So the topic is popular. And here's the key thing. It keeps coming up. So have a look at where they're appearing. What publications do they appear in? Are there any common journalists as well who always seem to be covering it for major organizations, for major news organizations, or even for smaller ones? Because journalists always have their favorite topics that they like to feature. And if you can help them write an article about something they like, you've got a lot easier job. So you then need to ask yourself, what is the next battery story in this particular case? Do you know what it is? And if not, then now you want to be watching out for any new developments that might be coming up that the press might latch onto. And when that happens, when you see that coming up, say tomorrow or something like that, you want to be sending a press release that isn't a new story, but helps to illustrate the existing one. Maybe a day, maybe a couple of days beforehand. It depends on the publication, because if you've got a weekly or a monthly news magazine, then you might have to get this in a couple of months beforehand. So get it in early, but connect it with an existing story. So another example I can think of was when the European Union introduced the Copyright Directive. And I was a press officer in the European Parliament at the time, working for the leader of the third largest group in there. And one of the things was this Copyright Directive. And what the Copyright Directive meant was that all of a sudden companies had to scan all the online content their users uploaded to find copyright breaches. So people that ran software, that had created software that did this, that scanned things automatically, suddenly started sending press releases to every tech journal, to every newspaper journal, to anyone who'd been writing about the Copyright Directive. The story in the media was mostly about the impact on small website owners, but the journalists were writing these stories and having to fill it out with more information. And remember, journalists often, certainly where they're covering multiple different beats and multiple different stories, they don't know all the details about it. So you can genuinely help them out. You can give them another angle on it. You can give them more information, which they will really appreciate. So in this particular case, you had all these companies that produced this software that would scan the content, reaching out on press release and saying, look, we've got this, we can do this, we can comment on this story. So you don't have to, that's another point, you don't have to have a direct news story, a completely separate angle to add to something. If you're thinking about branding as an organization or even as an individual expert, then simply giving a comment can be enough. A thought according to battery car expert Jane Smith. She says it's a great idea because of X and Y and Z or something like that. So can you offer an informed comment? If you don't think you can get a full story in, or you can't think of a full story to add to an existing story, then just give a comment. There's a chance that you're going to be used as an expert voice, and that's going to look good from your branding point of view as well. If you think about this, some people kind of go, oh, but I'm not an expert. But if you work in a field, you have expertise. I love this phrase I often use about experts, because what is an expert? An expert, the easiest way to think about this, there's obviously more nuances, but the easiest way to think about an expert is someone who's simply got more knowledge about something than the other people in the room at the time. So if you're able to give some insight that the audience of that outlet don't know, you are an expert. You quite simply are. So you could add a comment, an insight, or a story to an existing story to get yourself in there. I had a look at, I was looking at the Guardian website the other day, and a story came up in New South Wales in Australia. They're going to spend 38 million Australian dollars on speeding up electric vehicle developments and technology. Well, wouldn't the battery makers that I was talking to be able to comment on that story? Of course they would. They'd be able to say, well, we think this is a good approach, or we think that the technology that they're working on perhaps isn't the right one. You see, again, you can add yourself to this story. Your own story may not go picked up, but it may be, particularly for a global outlet that hasn't necessarily heard of you before, people are always cautious. But you could start that relationship with a journalist by helping to add value and allowing the journalist to get to know you as a thought leader in this space. You have got to react fast. And if I was doing their press, for example, on the battery, the electric car battery, if you saw something coming up on Twitter, you just got to jump on it. You've got to go for it as fast as possible. So be ready to ping, stand by, have a look at the news each morning in your sector and see what you could comment on. That's the tip for today. What did you think of these mini episodes? How many have I done over the past week? About 6 or 7. Just like short bite-sized episodes for each morning. Do you like them? Do they work for you? If you like them, let me know. If you don't like them, let me know. If you're a subscriber, you know where to find me on the email. But if not, then head to Twitter, @thatprchap. Thatprchap is my Twitter handle. Or Instagram is @thatprchap_official. Or on LinkedIn @RichardMidson. If you'd like to get the newsletter as well, head to thepublicrelationspodcast.com. Thepublicrelationspodcast.com. We've got a week ahead of us. I'm going to the House of Lords on Wednesday, Thursday, one day this week. I'm going to the British Parliament, to the House of Lords. So I'm going to bring you some tips from the political world this week and some other stuff too. I hope you have, whatever you're doing, a fantastic week. And that's the end of these mini episodes for now.